Hey guys, it's Sarah from Just My Typewriter, back again with my Frankenstein typewriter. So I have the parts, a rough diagnosis, and a cup of coffee. It's time to take this guy apart. The one thing I learned about this almost immediately was that I was totally unprepared for this part of the process. I started by removing the external panels from the typewriter. I've done this before on my previous Royal 10 project. Once I got through that though, I was stuck. I had no idea what to remove next. I knew I had to get the typewriter down to the frame for painting and removing the keys, and completely switch them out for another set. I messaged every repair person I could find and eventually concluded I just had to start removing screws and pray it would go back together eventually. I started by removing the carriage. I followed a diagram for a carriage removal from a KMM typewriter and modified it to match my model. I've linked that diagram below, and psst, I made a separate tutorial for how to do this on this channel. After removing the carriage, I took out the type slugs. Each type slug is numbered and connects to a full set of linkage, connecting the keys of your typewriter to type. These type slugs are held together in the type bar basket with a thin wire that curves around the bottom of the basket and loops through each type slug. To remove these, you have to push the wire through, starting on one side, releasing each type slug as you go. I removed each one by one, and labeled them as I removed them to know the order. It's important to also note how the linkage connects to your type slug, because when you put it back in, you want all the linkage to be facing the correct way. It's really condensed in there, and it alternates which side of the type slug the linkage connects to, coming in from the left or the right, and this helps you keep that area snug. After removing the type slugs, I set to take off pieces of the machine, little at a time. A huge part of this process was taking reference photos, so I had an image guide to follow as I placed the elements back in the machine on the other side. It's important to take photos of any linkage, screws, or places where adjustments might have been made in order to know how to set things back in the typewriter at the exact same adjustments. For example, these arms are attached to the type basket, and these nuts limit how far up and down the basket travels when engaged with the shift key. At this setting, everything should run smoothly, but I have to remove this element. When I put this back in the typewriter, I want to get as close to this adjustment as possible by placing the nuts back at the exact same level. This is why reference photos are indispensable. And also, who doesn't want internal photos of their typewriter's guts on their phone? In addition to reference photos, I also labeled every piece coming out of this typewriter to ensure I had a record of where pieces went and how they fit back together, because this project was happening over the course of a few months. This labeling was really helpful to remember where screws went or how the linkage pieces fit back into a bar. Mostly. Once I removed these elements from the typewriter, I had to clean them. Enter mineral spirits. A whole bucket of mineral spirits. Traditionally, you don't want to get mineral spirits on the outside elements of your typewriter because it'll eat away at the paint. But in the next episode, we're painting this baby. So I went through the process of dunking each element in mineral spirits in order to clean off any dust, residue, and dirt. What we discovered was that the inside of this typewriter was absolutely coated with coal dust, which is indicative of the time period when it would have been used. While a cool historical feature, the dust had to go if I was ever going to get this thing clean enough to function. I took a toothbrush to each internal element and the outside frame of the machine, and then I sanded down the outside of the frame to prep for painting. On the back of this typewriter, there was a large gash in the paint that appeared to go down to the metal of the machine. Using a powered hand sander, we were able to sand down these problem points to get a smooth surface for painting. I also did this to any area that had chipping in the paint in order to avoid those chipping areas showing up in the new paint job. Do not be fooled by the speed of this footage. This process took a very long time. Each piece of linkage that connects to something performs a function. It's important to remove each piece carefully so that you know what you have to work with, what you need to replace, and where it goes. If I can give you any advice about going down to the frame on a typewriter, it's take lots of reference photos. You need them. I need them. We all need them. And also, stay highly caffeinated. So we're prepped for the next stage of this project, painting. Please don't hate me for it. If you're interested in more typewriter content, including more episodes of this series, Buying a Bad Typewriter, check out the other videos on this YouTube channel. We also have an Instagram at just.my.typewriter. Thanks so much for watching, and I want to remind you, you're just my typewriter.